Welcome to the Future of Field Service podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Nicastro. I'm super excited to be celebrating our 150th episode today by welcoming a special guest, Shannon Tymosko. We're going to talk today about how Shannon has taken the skilled trades by storm as she made a big pivot in her career at age 29. So Shannon, welcome to the Future of Field Service podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very blessed to always share my story and hope to just, inspire or change a few minds.
Yes, I'm so glad you're here. I was inspired by your story myself, and I'm excited to share it with our audience. So
Thank you.
Now your official title is apprentice electrician, right?
Yep, that's my official work title. Yep.
And what is your chapter?
IBW Local 105 in Hamilton.
Okay. And you are also, as we were just chatting about before we started, you've become quite an advocate for the skilled trades and have done a ton of interviews and public speaking and are doing a lot to really, educate and advocate for the opportunities that exist for others, which is really cool.
I try my best. Originally I went to school for child and youth work and then I found this passion for the skilled trades, and somehow, I've been able to take those two passions, overlap them, and create this advocate position. Like, I don't know if is it a position, but it's just like nice to be able to inspire some people and, hopefully people can, live through my experiences and I can help them kind of start their own journey.
Yeah. Well, we talk quite a bit on this podcast about, how the organizations in the various industries that we reach are looking for ways to attract different people to the industry. And so I think that the advocate position is important because that's what starts to spread awareness of, what some of the opportunities are. It starts to kind of break down the, maybe some of the misperceptions that exist, those sorts of things. So I think it's a really important role. Okay.
100%. If you can see it, you can be it. That's what I keep saying, right? Like, how often do we see celebrities more than we see anything else as children, we see Disney princesses, but do we see skilled trades workers? Do we see ladies as skilled trades workers? And so, how do we believe we can do something like that unless we even know it exists?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So let's start with 2017. You are 29. And all of a sudden you decided, well, maybe not all of a sudden, but you decided you were ready for a change. So tell us a little bit about your journey up to that point. So what were you doing before this big change?
I'm 33 years of age. So, this is not my first, second, I think it's more like my fourth career at this point. I did do the typical go to school route. And originally I picked accounting first. I didn't like accounting. I spent a year, exploring something. And then I transferred to child and youth work, which I found to love. And this is where I found like my passion for people, my passion for mental health, change, growth, development, these kinds of things. And then, I did work in the field for a while as a child and youth worker. I worked at a shelter for homeless youth, one of my favorite jobs. It's just not one of those jobs that I like to say allow you to thrive. You just survive, especially, being a single person on a single income in the GTA or Greater Toronto area, I should say. And so I was really struggling, slowly going into debt. And so I had to maintain my college job, not one that I picked. It was just default. I worked at a financial institution. I worked there throughout my entire 20s, almost 9 years. And by the end of it, I only made $20 an hour, about $40,000 salary. Again, super hard to thrive. Like, I just want some wants in life. And so, I'm almost 30 years of age. I realize I have still 30 years of employment in front of me, which is, and I realized you spend more time at work than you do at home. Like, so important to find something that you love. And so I started this new journey. I started looking at, you just start online. You Google jobs that maybe fit your job skill that you already have. And
Mhm.
nothing was standing out until my friend Matthew, he purchased a home. He bought this house. Neither of us have any trades experience. We're both really green, is what they call us, like know nothing. And the second day, he had the keys to this house. He wanted to rip out his kitchen. And I thought he was nuts, but we did. We started with the kitchen and moved to 2 bathrooms, a basement. And I realized in that experience, because I tried something new, that I really
Mhm.
enjoyed this.
Mhm.
And I think that's like the biggest learning experience I got there is don't be afraid to try new things. And, even myself with that lesson, I fast forward a couple of years, and I always talk about people, try things. Don't,
Mhm.
don't, don't try, don't be afraid. And so this same friend Matthew, we love to canoe. So we always go down the river in the canoe. For a year, he bought this new kayak. He tried to convince me into the kayak, and I thought I wouldn't like it because I love the canoe. Like, why would I
Mhm.
possibly want something different? Finally, I get into the kayak, and now I love the kayak more than I love the canoe. And again,
Mhm.
so even myself, somebody who knows, like by trying something, it can lead to so much. We often limit ourselves because of beliefs about
Mhm.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, and so get out and explore the world and try things because you never know. It could lead you to a passion you never knew about.
Yeah. So, my husband and I, we just had our kitchen remodeled last year, and when we were meeting with the contractor, my husband, who is in marketing for his profession, was like, "Well, I want to do all the electrical." And I'm like, "What?" Um, but he wanted to do it. He was really interested in trying to do it, and it was also a way for us to save some money, right? And so he did it all himself. I mean, he's very detail oriented. So I mean, he did a lot of research, he did a lot of homework. He actually met with a couple of electricians to go over his plans so that he didn't like mess something up or burn the house down.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a big experience for him because he actually started thinking like maybe I would enjoy doing something different. I mean, he hasn't yet, but it is something where when you go through that experience doing something that isn't your daily norm, and that seed that's planted of like, oh, this is really fun, like I really like remodeling this house.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of took that and ran with it, and you're living proof that like anyone could. You're also living proof for organizations that you know someone can pivot, like someone can have aptitudes, interests, the right personality fit to make a change and be successful in a completely different field. Um so you're doing these home renovations and you're really liking it, and that is what sort of ignited your interest in becoming an electrician. So what happened next?
So I applied to some pre-apprenticeship programs. Having that child and youth works, skill set, I knew there was programs I'm sure out there. So I
Hmm.
researched some programs for women to get into the skilled trades, and I applied. I'm very grateful to get in, and so it started my journey to actually getting something on my resume, so I can hopefully get an actual job. And so this program was very nice to help set women up for success.
Hmm.
And so then, yeah, in that program, I met a couple of gentlemen that were actually IBW head office positions. So they did the training, they were the president, and they facilitated some of our training for this program, working at heights, lockout, tagout. And so I was grateful because I got the opportunity for them to see my face, to make that impression, because I think it's so important. People are looking for good talent. I think we'll talk about it in a little bit, but I think we need to look for more than just talent. I think we need to look for those other characteristics. And so
Hmm.
when I finished this program and I reached out to them, I was very grateful that they saw my drive, my heart, my eagerness, I want
Hmm.
to learn, and they were willing to take me on. So the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers here in Hamilton, it is a North American wide union, but
Hmm.
Hamilton here took me on, and so I've started my electrical journey, and yeah, I was very blessed to be put on a construction site that was for a hotel. So you can imagine that it was a large hotel. So it went
Hmm.
for quite some time. Sometimes your projects aren't so long. So I got almost 2 years out of this project, and started my kind of base and my of my electrical skills.
Mm-hmm. So what do you love most about being an electrician?
Oh, this is like, I don't know if I can say love most, because I love so many things about my job. The financial freedom. I talk a lot about, the thriving and not just surviving. That
Mm-hmm.
financial freedom, it didn't, I think when we're little, I don't know about you, but we see more Disney princesses getting married. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking in my head, I'm going to be married certainly before I'm 33. Part of that marriage comes another income. And so these are things that you maybe think about. You don't think about, it's just there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm 33 and still living on a single income. And so this financial freedom that I get with working in as an electrical apprentice, I make more as an electrical apprentice than I did in any of my previous jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the benefits, I have, pension, and, on a, not much more deeper level than just a physical or financial benefit. What I really love about the skilled trades is, I think you kind of talked about it with, touched on it a little bit with your husband's taking on the electrical project at home. I talk a lot about mental health and, how is confidence built? Confidence
Mm-hmm.
built by competence. It's by trying something, failing a few times, and then being successful. So what did you talk about? You said there was maybe some self-doubt. What did he do?
Mm-hmm.
He researched, he figured it out. Maybe there was some trial and error, but I bet he felt great when he turned that light switch on and everything went on. And that is a little bit of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And every day I go to work and I look at something, I might doubt myself a little, they're doubting me a little, and I'm successful. That feeling that I built that,
Mm-hmm.
I built that. I contributed to me, to society, to my physical and mental health is so rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is, one of the most rewarding things I can get, along with this, independence at home to try new
Mm-hmm.
things. So, like your husband tried the electrical, it might not be what he's doing on a daily basis.
Yeah.
For me, I've taken on car repairs. I started with, oil changes. I've moved on to brakes, spark plugs, saving myself money, and
Mm-hmm.
also, building myself new skills.
Yeah.
And so there's just too many things for me to pick one of why I love, the skilled trades and, electrical, and how much it could benefit someone.
Okay. So on the flip side, what would you say is the hardest part of the new career?
It's funny. I think it's that, again, we kind of touched on that self-doubt. It's
Mm-hmm.
every day you kind of need to remind yourself, listen, you can do this. Remember how far you've come already. And so, I often sit here, and even 2 years in this journey, and I sit here a little bit in awe that you're in construction. Like, you walk on a construction site every day, and, one of perhaps 100 people. I have to remind myself when I'm having those moments of self-doubt, because the job is, if you understand, if you're a hard worker and you're eager, the job is not necessarily hard. There might be hard moments of lifting things, but the job itself is not hard. Most people are very capable if you teach them. And so it's that self-doubt, which every day you have to fight a little.
Yeah. Now, do you think you have more self-doubt than a male apprentice electrician because you know that all eyes are on you?
I don't know if it's like, I think women are a little bit, maybe sometimes I'm just going to say I'm in my head more than most of the men on the construction site. I don't like to put us into, but I'm definitely in my head. And then there is that pressure of you're a woman. Some of them don't think you belong there. They don't say it to you, but I know, and so there most certainly is, this, pressure to, but perform. And I say this as well. It's not only to perform for myself, to know that like I'm doing a good day's work, but with so few women in the skilled trades, I am a representation of every woman on another construction site, who's going to follow me, because men are judging me and they're judging women as a whole at the same time.
Right.
And that is a different, that's not the same pressure for my fellow male apprenticeship.
Yeah. So I want to read something that I read from an article you were interviewed for, and this is about being a woman in the industry. And so it says, actions often speak louder than words. And being a woman in the skilled trades today means I am still a minority, underestimated, and a trailblazer for other women to follow. It means I must be strong, self-aware, and realistic that I'm still in a man's world. I must be patient and not push change, but be an ambassador and advocate for change. I must be persistent, work hard, and show the young women of tomorrow that they too can do whatever they desire. If you see it, then it's easier to believe you can be it. Although my experience is limited to only a short few years, I can say it can be lonely at times being the only woman on a construction site. It's also rewarding knowing you helped build that and had the courage to walk back into work every day where so many others wouldn't. And so, I mean, first of all, this speaks volumes of your character and fortitude, because it does take a lot of courage, like everyone, you're probably right in saying every human being like has some variation of their own self-doubt, but the pressure you're under is magnified because of the fact that, there's these long-standing perceptions and these societal norms and this, that, and the other thing.
And the pressure is not just for, I think the pressure is for any minority,
Oh yeah.
Let's be honest, in construction, it's not very diverse, so whether you're the woman or you're the person who looks different in any way, there's a different kind of pressure for that person.
Yeah. And I think, like you said in this statement, some isolation, right? Which is hard you said it's the brotherhood, right? Is the IBEW, right? Like, so that in a name even is, and so if there's this brotherhood and you're the odd man or woman out because you're different in some way, that's, that it adds an extra layer of challenge of coming to work every day and, doing what you need to do and feeling fulfilled. So I commend you. What I wanted to ask is, if you think big picture, those feelings that you have, knowing that you're the minority, knowing that you're in a man's world, feeling that sense of isolation sometimes, how do we move past that? So for a variety of skilled trades that understand they need to hire, with more diversity, women and all different types, that's going to be a big challenge, right? Because some people wouldn't want to take on what you take on every time you walk into a job site. So what do you think, in your opinion, from a culture perspective, what are some of the things that need to change so that it isn't quite so daunting for a woman or for, any minority to be a part of the brotherhood?
I think it's just going to take time. I think it's just going to take more women and or more equality, like everybody, a little bit of diversity. And it's interesting because, over my experience, I've met some incredible women and they've taught me some incredible things. And one of them said to me, she said, Shannon, I've been in an industry with been predominantly male my entire life. And whenever they have a meeting, whether I'm in that meeting or not, they call me in. And for whatever reason, it's just because she changes the energy of the room. Mm-hmm. And you kind of think about that. And, at work one day, there was a moment that clarified and validated this. I was working. I was up on a ladder installing a light. There's hallways, so you can't quite see what's in front of you. And I heard someone coming, the supervisor that was on site. He was mad. He was yelling. And I was just grateful I wasn't on the other end. But he turned the corner, saw me, and he didn't stop. He was still saying what he needed to say, but his volume dropped in half. What's different? than me. And so I think with more of us, it changes the energy. And how do you do that is the next question. How do you get more women into the skilled trades? And I think we all know the answer, because we say it all the time. Education is power. Education is free. Education is what gives people the ability to make choices. And so the problem, I think, with the skilled trades is we don't educate soon enough. And so if you don't, if the option isn't presented to you before you're maybe 8-10 years of age, do you ever consider it? Because there's, so much, I would say brainwashing, conditioning. There's so much conditioning. We see, us women, we see princesses. The boys see trucks and construction workers. Well, where's our equal balance of women construction workers to say that you can do that too? Like, maybe it needs to be a princess construction worker who goes around the castle and fixes things. I don't know. But we need to start, reaching young people at a younger level, so that and that goes for men too, to get them interested in the skilled trades, so that they know that this is a option. Because people often ask me, why did I pick electrical? And I feel like my answer speaks volumes, because I was undereducated. I picked electrical because that's what I saw. Growing up, I saw plumbing, electrical, roofers, carpenters. This is very basic. But if I had some education, I would have probably picked, in hindsight, something that was a little bit, less flooded, something like elevator maintenance, a lot of electrical base in that, but it's not as flooded of a trade. And that's because of education. And so young and old, doesn't matter how old, we need to start introducing the idea to younger people, so that it can be something that, and not something they can consider.
I mean, meanwhile, those elevator companies are within our audience, right? And they're looking for people to take those jobs, right? And so, I mean, if you ever decide you want to go down that path, you probably still have plenty of opportunity. But you're right. There's gender norms that are still being reinforced, and that is prohibiting, like you said. We see more actors and actresses than female skilled trade workers. We see becoming a movie star as a more realistic career path than becoming an electrician as a female. And so they just aren't roles that are shown in the same light. And I think part of that is this, perception of, like my parents didn't go to college. So it was always pushed to me that I had to, because that was the, gold standard, right? I don't necessarily think that's the case anymore. And, we need to do a better job of sharing more paths and more choices, and not just even in the education system, like defaulting to everyone. There is no right or singular, like, it's not like a conveyor belt, right? Like, let's just move them all along and they'll go off and do these 5, do you want to be a doctor, whatever, because there are too many individuals for it to be that kind of standardized in terms of the options.
And don't get me wrong. Actress is a very glamorous position. Would you not like to get pretty and dress up in a dress on a regular basis? Absolutely. But let's be honest, is it a realistic one for most people? And the funny thing is, when I've had my best I've never been asked to be in a magazine in my life until I became a skilled trades worker. So,
and now you're famous. I mean, who knew? That was the path, right?
There's so many different avenues you can go down. And I think one of the biggest things we need to tackle, is misperception as well. I think, let's take a look and compare my child and youth work job with my electrical job. And a lot of people don't go the skilled trades route because of things like it's too dirty. As a child and youth worker, I wiped bums. Not my own kids' bums, strangers' bums. Noisy, sure, but I get earplugs as an electrical worker, as a child and youth worker. I do not get to say, "Child, please stop screaming," as I put in my earplugs.
Mhm.
And then the not strong enough thing. I was lifting kids out of wheelchairs to,
Mhm.
place them in whichever position they might be.
Mhm.
Why can't I do that as a skilled trades worker? And so if it's perception. If you've ever
Mhm.
thought maybe I could be a caretaker and take care of somebody,
Yeah.
it's quite the possibility that you have the same skill set to be a skilled trades worker.
Mhm.
And guess
And
what?
to your
I
point, the earning potential is far higher, right? I
100%.
mean, yeah, it's a really good point. And you
And now
mentioned,
on a plus side, I don't have to get dressed up every day, every work. I know that the glamorous thing sounds nice, but now I don't have to do that at all. And so I get like an extra 30 minutes of sleep every day.
yes, that's a plus. Um, okay, I wanted to share this point that you made. You were talking about your nephew, okay?
Mhm.
And you were saying that even though you have made this career transition and you are, working in construction as an electrician, um, he still defaults to asking the men around him, can you fix this? Or, so just kind of going back to this idea that, for us to really make a change, I think, in increasing diversity in the trades, and in any traditionally male dominated career, we really have to think about the representation at a very, very young age.
And we might just have to flood the net, like not flood the network, but they're flooded with other things of
Mhm.
boys and in construction positions. One is not enough. Even in a real situation, one is not enough. It needs to be
Mhm.
maybe flooded. And there needs to be an excess amount of women, representation in the skilled trades for people
Yeah.
to start to get that change.
Yeah. I've done a series on this platform before called Women in Field Service. And, we would feature women in different roles across the industries that we cover. And one time I was talking to someone, and they gave me some, you know, what they felt was constructive criticism, that how do you expect things to be equal if you keep pointing it out as women in? And I thought a lot about it because, I always try to be cognizant of what messages I'm sending and or reinforcing, and I try to always be willing to learn. But where I landed is I would love to get to a point where it doesn't have to be pointed out, but we're not there yet. And to your point, we won't get there by being quiet about it. I think we
Right.
have to keep talking about it and talking about the importance of it until it no longer needs that label, because the work has been done, so that it isn't just women in field service, it's just person in field service. But
And
we're
it,
a
it,
long ways away from that being,
it's
the point.
it's interesting you say that because as a person who's active on social media, I often get lots of comments, and
Hmm.
sometimes some of the word I think the word that people have used is, why is this such a novelty, women being in the skilled trades? And like, I want to go to my phone right now and Google the definition of novelty because I don't remember it 100%, but I think it landed on, until it's a norm,
Hmm.
and you see it on a regular basis, then
It's a
yes, it's a
novelty.
novelty.
Yeah.
And so like, it's like, so we have to, again, make it so normal
Hmm.
that people don't look into the crowd and see the difference.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I think it's really important. And I think, the work you're doing in telling your story and sharing your story is really helpful, especially because you pivoted, right? And hopefully people will come up and, girls will choose this as their career from the get-go and share their story as well, right? So what else do you think? Is there any other tricks to sort of helping the next generation see the potential that exists in the skilled trades. So we talked a lot about representation and how important that is. Um, is there anything else we need to be thinking about in terms of, planting more seeds among kids, regardless of boy, girl, any gender and background, but just understanding that this is a viable career path and something that they could consider.
100%. I feel like, I talked on it earlier about actually trying something.
Mm-hmm.
We can put the representation there all we want, but unless we present the opportunity to try, they'll never know if they like it.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to, I think, definitely reintroduce, if your school has removed those programs, of skilled trades, things like basic skills like budgeting. These kinds of things are so important, and they're not taught at the basic level. So if there was a class where you not say forced, you're forced to take math. So yes, if you were forced to take a construction class where you learned the basics for home care, I don't see anything wrong with that. And it's, I talked about it earlier today, how do we make change? And I don't know about you, but over my lifetime, the common presents that I got as a girl were things like pajamas, lotion, perfume. Thank you. And, it slowly collects because it slowly collects and then it expires. What do
Mm-hmm.
boys get? Boys get like hammers, and maybe they'll get fun little tool sets. They probably don't think they're all that interesting at 10, but they turn 17 and they're like, oh man, I just got a car and that tool set I got when I was 10, and they can revisit their present. My lotion has far expired at this
Mm-hmm.
point, right? So, get some tools into the hands of young people. If you have a project at home, drag your kids out to experience it, like you're changing your tires over in Canada. We're doing the summer winter thing on a regular basis. If you do that at home, get your kids involved.
Mm-hmm.
Get their hands on the tools. They don't know if they'll like it until they've tried it.
Yeah.
And it's so important to give them that opportunity to try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, so let's think as if you are giving advice to, doesn't need to be construction, any company that is in an industry that has traditionally been seen as male dominated, or has traditionally been male dominated, that is looking to attract a younger, more diverse pool of candidates. What are some of the things that they need to be thinking about in terms of having a message that would resonate with someone like you at 29 before you made this transition?
It's interesting because, I feel like I'm a little biased on this because I've just recently gone through some of the hiring process. I normally leave it out of my journey because it just adds to it, but I did a little bit of machining in the midst of all of this. So I've applied for 2 different trades positions over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And the struggle I came across most was there's just not many entry-level first-year positions or even second year because people want the 3rd, 4th, 5th year. And I totally get that. I worked business. You don't, as a small business, you don't want to train someone to know what a pen is if they don't know yet. And that's the thing about the skilled trades is you're learning new things every day. You're learning there's so much material and everything's got 3 names plus a nickname. It's very overwhelming for that new hire. And new employers don't want to take them on. So for me, I'm like, is there a demand in skilled trade, in workers? Because I get so many people messaging me saying, how do I get a job? And I'm like, employers, they have to understand it's going to cost money to take on the next generation. And what you're going to lose if you don't do it, employers, and this is what you need to listen to, is I'm not so concerned, everybody, about the lack of workers. I'm concerned about the potential loss of knowledge that you're about to lose. Electrical goes from, and I don't even know it, I'm so inexperienced, but I know there's like knob and tube, there's aluminum, and then there's the new, smart devices and all these different things. How much has technology changed in the last 50 years alone that those senior guys are going to take with them? And you haven't passed down that knowledge to your new hires, because I
Mm-hmm.
get it. It costs money, but that's the part of the apprenticeship process. They don't go to university and college. You pay the minimum wage, but you have to train them. There's a cost
Mm-hmm.
associated with that, and employers need to start taking that on. If to me, it's a little bit of both sides.
Yeah.
There's people interested.
Yeah.
I'm interested. Like, there are people interested. I promise you.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
just need to be open to new people.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. And we've talked about that a bit. That the organizations who have historically hired on experience as, the primary characteristic, it's becoming harder and harder to find, yet there are really good candidates that have interests, aptitudes, abilities that could be developed into experience pretty quickly, if we just kind of shift, the way we look at hiring and what type of training and development programs exist. Um, that being said, I think one of the things that stood out to me about your story is you have this hunger to learn, right? Like you're really big on, you know, not just showing up and doing your best, but being open to the learning process, right? And so, do you think that's something that is innate, or do you think that's something that someone can kind of nurture and develop, right? Because I think if we think about a future where, let's say more of those entry level programs exist, where whether you're fresh out of school or whether you've been in a certain career and you want to make a change the way you did, you don't have any experience, but you have some skills or abilities or interests that you think would be applicable. Um, if you go into those programs, though, I mean, you have to have this strong willingness to learn, right? And to, in a lot of ways be humble, right? And to show up every day and be ready to take it all in and try different things and learn as you go and fall down and get back up. Do you feel like everyone has that, or could develop that, or do you think it's just something that is innate in certain people?
Um, it's very interesting. That's the age-old question of nature versus nurture, and it's like, as a child and youth worker, it's one of the questions that are presented to us on a regular basis. Is this something that they're born with, or did it? Did in some way this was created? And I've had the recent opportunity to watch my cousin raise two children, and she's a teacher. She's a fabulous mother. The first one is like, comes out, I'm genius, reading books, like, so I'm thinking the next one, he's going to be the exact same. Well, didn't nature just take over? This one's a runner, doesn't want to talk yet. Nope, he is such an explorer, climbing on tables. And so she's done the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a little bit of both. I think we can definitely mold and train and guide people in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe we need to think about, when we're little, we have such a hunger for learning. We're
Mm-hmm.
out exploring the world. We want to know what the bugs are. Because it's all so new to us. When do we lose this loss
Mm-hmm.
for this hunger for learning? Maybe they're not presenting interesting enough topics in high school or elementary school to keep that flame alive.
Yeah.
And so it's, again, I think you are definitely born with a certain amount of things you cannot control.
Mm-hmm.
I talk a lot. I've tried to control that for years. Can't. But I definitely think you can guide, mold, and encourage and mentor someone in the right direction if,
Yeah.
with the right kind of, with the
Yeah.
right intentions.
For sure. Okay. So another thing that I really liked about you when I was researching your profile is you speak out openly about mental health, which is something that I not only respect but also try and do myself. So two questions related to this. The first is, how has your pivot into the skilled trades either helped or hindered your mental health?
Great question. One of the things, again, I kind of touched on it earlier, but I didn't dive into it, that like, one of the things I love about the skilled trades is, how it's given me physical and mental health. That's very quickly brushed over, but there's so much more to that. As a person myself who struggles with some depression, a little bit of probably anxiety at times, I've gone to my fair share of professionals. I think that's what's pushed me to be a child and youth worker, because I wanted to understand more about myself. And so, I've gone to a doctor. My doctor, if you have a good doctor, the doctor, before he prescribes you on some sort of medication, should ask you if you exercise. And my answer up to that point was no, because I sit behind a desk for 40 hours. And so what am I doing for my mental health? If just a little bit of exercise can change the way I feel. And so being in construction, you don't get to sit. It's not a sitting job. And I'm not one to go to the gym ever. You have to pay me to work out. And so this job, I'm being paid to take care of my own mental health in a way. Mm-hmm. And the physical aspect, this keeps you just that part. It keeps you younger, it keeps you active, keeps you moving, especially, most of us has been trapped at home during COVID. So, to have that ability to go out and do something. There's some days you don't want to, trust me, sure. But then, by the end of the day, you're kind of grateful that today, it's like when you go to the gym and you're happy that you made it there. I know some people can relate to that.
That's what you hear anyway.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Something about that.
So the other part of this, though, that I'm curious about is, is mental health a conversation you've normalized at all at work since you've gotten into the skilled trades?
It's not something that's talked ever, I think, as a whole. It's not like you're ever going to be like, this week's safety talk is on mental health and respect, and it's not really something that regularly comes up in a group setting. But it's shocking, as a woman on the skilled trades, I think men, they just feel their defenses come down a little bit. So I'm the first one to get to see your new baby picture, and this is, that's a moment that they're being vulnerable. They're being a little bit more, sensitive than they would before. And so in individual one-on-one settings, I think I've been able to kind of create some conversations about it. They start to, open up a little bit. If I talk a little bit about my mental health, sometimes they might share a little bit about themselves. And it just gives me that little bit of a bond. And again, that word normalizes it, I guess. And I think it's too much to take it on as a whole. But if you can get to, you can kind of change the mindset, encourage someone that it's okay to kind of be themselves, you might be able to shift the energy. And with more women just entering the skilled trades, that's going to shift naturally, because, once the numbers are in our favor and it's a 2-on-1 one day and there's 2 females and 1 male, you have no choice but to deal with our conversation of choice. And so it will just hopefully make change a little bit easier with more women.
Yeah. Well, it's great that you're on the front lines doing the hard work for all of us.
You're so kind.
Is there anything else, Shannon, that we haven't talked about that you think is an important part of your story or your message for others, looking at the skilled trades or in the skilled trades?
Just thank you for listening. I think the fact, if you're here, that means you're open to change. It means you're, open to listening. And that's the first step, is just, starting that kind of conversation and being open to it. So if you're listening today, thank you very much. And hopefully there's something that, maybe resonated with you, or, something that just encouraged you. Some of my most blessed things are when I get messages, from women themselves, or sometimes parents, that their kids came home from a presentation that day and they're like, I don't know what you said to my daughter that day, but like, she can't stop talking about it. And those are the ones that just bless my heart. And so
yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you for anybody who's.
Did I read that you have a kids book?
As I've talked about, trying to reach that younger generation, it's motivated me to make a kids book. So I got what they call like the manuscript kind of done.
Okay. So you're working on one.
I'm working on it. And,
I love that.
to again try to reach that younger generation, and I think there's so much potential there, and so how can I make change?
Yeah.
Hopefully with a little book.
That's awesome. Well, we'll definitely stay tuned for that. I think it's a wonderful
Thank
idea. And the speaking that you're doing, not only here and in, different articles, but certainly going to schools and sharing your experience. I mean, you're doing really important work in, making the progress that you want to see made. And I'm sure there's days where it feels like that progress is significant. And there's probably other days where you're like, is it ever going to be equal, or is it just always going to be like me feeling isolated? But you're doing the work every day to change that, and I think it's awesome. And I also think your story is a really helpful one for organizations that are trying to break the mold on who they hire, how they hire, to really hear someone's firsthand perspective and be able to think about, what made you want to change? What was important to you? What do you like about what you're doing? What are some of the challenges? That's how they can start to think differently and make progress in their organizations as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. And
yes,
I really hope that I can, like I said, influence and make some change. And sometimes it means you have to stir and create a little dirty laundry. Like you need to create conversation, but with that conversation, hopefully also comes some really great, amazing things for everybody.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you spending some time with me today, Shannon.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. I really appreciate being here with you and your guests.
Thanks. You can find more by visiting us at futureoffieldservice.com. You can also find us on LinkedIn as well as Twitter at the Future of FS. The Future of Field Service podcast is published in partnership with IFS. You can learn more at ifs.com. As always, thank you for listening.